Extremists hiding in plain sight. Militia members outed, including a sheriff in Colorado who says he left the group. Colorado's Democratic Secretary of State faces a complaint that her campaign misused official state records looking for political donors. There's a lot of alarming news coverage about rainbow fentanyl, stories that could use some more context. And Colorado's animal shelters are full of pets surrendered by their owners. When those animals have just days or hours to live, a nonprofit comes to the rescue. We'll come to their aid together on Next. Hidden militia extremists in office, in law enforcement, and in the military. The names of 38,000 members of the far-right group, the Oath Keepers, have now been revealed. Analysis by the Anti-Defamation League's Center on Extremism identifies members in Colorado in elected office and law enforcement.
I'm hoping that this will help to open people's eyes a little bit more to the really profound threat posed by extremism and by the continuing mainstreaming of extremism in this country.
Jessica Reeves is one of the researchers for the ADL who went through the 38,000 names. They found hundreds of people around the country, people in power who are members of the Oath Keepers or once had ties to the Oath Keepers. We're talking about sheriffs and sheriff's deputies, police officers, elected leaders, members of the military. The ADL found there are 969 people who signed up for the Oath Keepers in Colorado. 25 have prominent positions, including 2 elected officials, 14 in law enforcement, and 7 in the military.
All of these positions have outsized authority and outsized power within their community. So you might look at these numbers and think like, well, 26 people or whatever isn't so bad. But if you think about each of those people having and being in a position of power and being in a position to exercise authority over others, it becomes clear that, these are exponential each of these people has exponential impact.
The ADL is not identifying the individual people on the list. They said their goal was not to dox rank and file members of law enforcement. They did say that they reached out to their commanding officers to inform them that someone under their command is or was involved with this militia preparing to fight the U.S. government. But in some cases, it's the boss. The Associated Press says one of the Coloradans who signed up for the Oath Keepers was Otero County Sheriff Sean Mobley. Sheriff Mobley told Next that he became a member of the Oath Keepers in 2014 because he thought that the group promoted supporting and defending the U.S. Constitution. He says he believes the group's views became more extreme and he did not renew his membership. But prior to the time the sheriff joined, the Oath Keepers had already directed their members to form militia-like teams preparing to defend Americans from martial law being imposed by the government. Democratic Secretary of State Jena Griswold's campaign is facing a new complaint that they illegally harvested information on potential donors off the campaign finance website that Griswold oversees in her state office. It's against state law for campaigns to use the tracer system to find new donors. Like, if you give money to one campaign, another campaign is not supposed to take that official state record of the donation as a lead to hit you up for money. The complaint comes from a man named Joel Greenberg. Greenberg says he donated to another campaign that misspelled his last name with a U. He noticed that. And then he noticed Griswold's campaign solicited him for money using the same misspelling of his last name. Greenberg says that a Griswold campaign worker admitted to him that they had pulled his information off of Tracer, the official state website that Griswold oversees. The complaint went to Griswold's office. They've passed it along to the Attorney General's office for investigation. The Griswold campaign did not confirm or deny what Greenberg said. They told us they needed to look into it. Mesa County Clerk Tina Peters has officially pleaded not guilty to charges that she tampered with election equipment and misused her office to allow outsiders access to the system. The Republican clerk, who's a nationally known election conspiracy theorist, came to court today. Judge set her trial for next March. Peters also has other legal trouble, more minor stuff. There's a contempt of court citation for allegedly recording a video of a court proceeding for a deputy clerk, a woman who turned state's evidence against Peters, and an obstruction charge for physically resisting officers who tried to serve her with a search warrant, trying to get her iPad back in February. The Drug Enforcement Administration put out the warning, and you saw news outlet after news outlet run with it. It was an alarming message about rainbow fentanyl being targeted towards kids. When we started asking around Colorado, we found those alerts could use a lot more context. Here's Anusha Roy.
The information the DEA shared is indeed alarming. They said brightly colored fentanyl was seized in 18 states. The media dubbed it rainbow fentanyl that looks like candy and sidewalk chalk, that it's a deliberate effort by drug traffickers to drive addiction amongst kids and young adults. For as deadly as fentanyl is, and for the kids who have died because of it, the news spread quickly.
If a young child were to come across something that looks like a piece of candy, they're certainly not going to hesitate and eat it. Other population that we think about is, of course, the adolescent population.
So far, it hasn't shown up at the ER at Children's Hospital Colorado. Same goes for Health One metro area ERs, and Denver Health hasn't noticed it either.
We have at least 3 documented seizures here in Colorado.
Keith Wise with the Rocky Mountain high-intensity drug trafficking area said there have been 3 seizures in the state over the last month or so, a few hundred pills at a time.
Name of candy or Skittles.
It doesn't seem like much when we've heard about seizures in the hundreds of thousands, but Wise believes it's just the beginning.
The shipments that we're now seeing coming up into Colorado seem to be a little bit smaller, but it could just be a matter of them testing out the market.
Some experts, though, are questioning the DEA's wording and if rainbow fentanyl is really meant to target kids or if that's misleading, saying at the end of the day, cartels are running a business and typically reaching adults is where they're going to make more money, and that colorful pills are not new.
I wouldn't say it's specifically marketed for any one group.
Products appeal to adults as well. You know, they're fun looking, just like any other recreational drug. You know, things like ecstasy and other recreational drugs, we know that they also come in forms like this. The unintended consequences for us are, you know, it also appeals to that adolescent population and unfortunately the young child as well.
I asked the DEA, their national media folks, about the evidence and the stats behind what they're saying about rainbow fentanyl, but so far I have not heard back from them yet. Regardless, though, it is still dangerous, it is still lethal, and once again, Colorado is finding itself in a position because they're watching what happens on the coast and other parts of the country before it comes to Colorado. Even with fentanyl in the form that we commonly know it now, we watch that same pattern happen as well.
Yeah, it seems like a lot of drug trends in the U.S. are not originating in Colorado. You watch it happen in other states and you see it happen here.
Yeah, 100%. And so, you know, one of the things that's very interesting is how long will it take, right, for that to happen? What's happening on the West and East Coast? It's kind of a nuanced question, but drug experts are saying that now that it's here, they're only expecting those seizures and the quantities that they find to become bigger and bigger. How long is that going to take? A month, couple months, a year? I mean, that's just really hard to guess at this point.
I appreciate the context, though. All right, Anusha, thank you. Colorado's animal shelters are overflowing with dogs and cats surrendered by their owners. You have shelters racing to find homes for as many pets as possible, but we know that there are animals for whom the time runs out. They're euthanized every day. There's a nonprofit that regularly gets the lists of dogs and cats scheduled for euthanasia and then races to get as many as possible placed in foster homes. Your Word of Thanks microgiving campaign this week will help Animal Rescue of the Rockies save pets up and down the Front Range and in the high country. The nonprofit gets hundreds of requests a week, more animals than they can currently save. Often they will get a day and a time, like that they have until 3 p.m. tomorrow to claim a dog. Their largest cost is veterinary care. So what that means is that if there are 2 pets scheduled for euthanasia shortly and one has a totally treatable medical condition, they often have to leave that animal behind and save the other one. Animal Rescue of the Rockies says they have never seen such long lists of pets on what they call death row. They said that with a bit of our help, they'd be able to rescue more pets with completely treatable conditions like heartworm and ringworm, and then find them foster families on their way to a forever home. Scan the QR code on your screen or text the word THANKS to 303-871-1491, and I'll send you that link to donate. You've proven that even $5 helps. I will never ask you to give if I don't give myself, so I'll match the first 50 donations of $5. We know from the news that Colorado's animal shelters are beyond crowded right now. Even for those of us who aren't in a position to adopt a pet, here's something we can do to help.
E-bikes are getting more popular, yet some insurance companies aren't sure how to cover them. Colorado found that out the hard way. The most Colorado thing we saw today takes us to the top of a 14er.
So I had a goal that I wanted to take my baby up to 14,000 feet before she was 1 year old.
Diapers usually are not hiking gear, but they are today on Next.
E-bikes, electric bicycles, are they a bike or a motor vehicle? If you have one or even thinking about getting one, you might want to find out what your insurance company thinks. Because if that bike is stolen or you get into a crash, it's your insurance company's definition that matters. Here's Katie Eastman.
It's been almost 2 months since Ron Allen and his wife had their electric bike stolen.
We put them in the garage and went in because we thought, hey, we'll come out and use them later or use them tomorrow.
He's upset with the thieves, but even more aggravated by his insurance claim.
We thought, yeah, we have insurance. We've had homeowners insurance for 27 years with the same company, and we didn't think there'd be any issue. We were wrong about that.
USAA denied the claim, saying e-bikes fall under property we do not cover.
We assumed they were bicycles. The company said, no, those are motor vehicles, and we don't cover motor vehicles.
So Ron asked if his car insurance could cover them and was told, no, that doesn't apply either.
We always think there's no new thing in insurance, but there is. And e-bikes falls under that.
Carol Walker with the Rocky Mountain Insurance Association says some insurance companies might consider e-bikes personal property and cover them under homeowners or renters insurance, but others might not.
Even if you have coverage under a homeowner's insurance policy, understand how that's covered. If it's excluded, if you do have coverage, what the limits and deductibles are, and then how are you covered for liability?
Ultimately, Walker's advice is to call your insurance company now rather than find out the hard way, like Ron.
You know, if I had just reported that my bike was stolen for $1,600, I would have been reimbursed. But because I put my electric bike was stolen, they said, no, we don't cover it.
Part of Ron's frustration comes from Colorado law. Electric bikes and scooters are exempt from motor vehicle registration and license requirements, so he thought it wouldn't count as a motor vehicle. I did reach out to USA this afternoon, and they're taking a look at Ron's denial.
So if you reach out to USAA and find out your SOL, what are your options at that point?
Well, you can do what Ron's doing. He's currently trying to find another insurance company that would cover it under homeowners or rental insurance, or you can get a separate individual policy just for your e-bike and kind of pay for that on top of your other insurance.
I can imagine that conversation at the dinner table. Honey, I want to get an e-bike and a rider. And she says, I don't think the rider sounds safe. And you say, no, wait, I found out about it on Next. Katie Eastman, thank you.
Our next question tonight is one that we get a ton. Darren, Joaquin, Howard, Barry, Linda, so many others have asked, what is going on with all of the expired plates and temporary tags you see on the roads?
I bet we get this question once a week, and I really wish that we had a more satisfying answer. It's about regulations and it's about human choices. DMV says there is no longer a backlog in issuing registrations or renewing plates. That's not the problem anymore. You remember that was the issue early in the pandemic. The DMV was closed. Then they had a lot of catching up to do. But the Department of Revenue says there's no backlog anymore. DMV would not speculate on why we're seeing so many people driving around with expired plates or temporary tags. So you know the deal. Owners get a 1-month grace period from expiration. And after that, people with expired registration have to pay a $25 per month late fee. But that late fee is capped at $100. So if you're 4 months late, let it ride, baby. DMV says there were 917 citations issued last month for temporary or expired tags. That's only what's reported to them. Doesn't account for the tickets issued by police. We'll keep answering your questions about anything you wonder about in this state, because if you're thinking about it, somebody else is too. And that one has been top of mind for a long time around here. Email your questions to next@9news.com.
Another day, another record. Previous record, 95. It was set back in 2013. Today, officially 99 degrees out at DIA. Triple-digit temperatures in Lamar, through Pueblo, Sterling, Ray, Greeley, all the way up into Nebraska. It was pretty toasty up into the high country, too, with low 90s in Steamboat, Kremling, and Eagle. This ridge of high pressure, it is anchored off to the west, continuing to pump in the heat for us, but we are watching a little bit of moisture kind of cruising in around the ridge, plus some smoke from wildfires burning across the northwest. We saw some of it today. Probably noticed the hazy skies out there. Again, early tomorrow morning, it's going to be a smoky start to the day. Hopefully by the afternoon and evening, once a cold front pushes through, we will be looking at some better conditions. We have the heat advisory in place once again tomorrow up and down the I-25 corridor, and tomorrow it stretches off to the eastern plains where we could see temperatures upwards of 105. Looks to be another record breaker for us as the forecast high here in Denver sits at 100 degrees for your Thursday afternoon. This ridge of high pressure shifts off to the west, making way for a storm system, and that means a big drop off in our temperatures. 70s Friday, 60s on Saturday with a few showers, and the 80s. They're back next week.
A baby summits a 14er. Don't worry, she had help.
And then she pretty much passed out and took a nap immediately after.
It's the most Colorado thing we saw today. Next. The most Colorado thing we saw today is a baby on a 14er. I'm all for getting outdoors with the littles, but when a mom recently shared photos of the family with the really little one on Mount Democrat, we had to know more.
So I'm Katie Purdy, and this is Willow Purdy, and we hiked up to 14,000 feet at Mount Democrat. A couple years ago, I previously hiked Mount Democrat, and I remember seeing a guy with a baby on his back and saying to myself that if I ever had a kid, that I would do exactly the same myself. So I had a goal that I wanted to take my baby up to 14,000 feet before she was 1 year old. And Willow did it at 10 and a half months old. Fortunately, my husband carried her most of the way, and we put her in like a baby hiking backpack. She actually did really well. It was a little windy at the top, and she didn't like that very much. But on the way down, she pretty much slept the entire way. It was the most rewarding feeling. You know, my husband had her in his arms, and he ran the last couple feet, held her in the air like the Simba or the Lion King. We found like a little sheltered spot, and she napped on Dad, which was pretty cute. And I think it's the type of fun thing that we can put at her graduation and 16-year-old birthday party. And then one day I would actually like to do it with her again, but have her do it on her own 2 feet. I'm excited for her to actually be able to do it herself.
Keep sharing your stories of Colorado adventures, big or small. They catch our eye, we may share them here. Get our attention on Twitter with the hashtag HeyNext or email next@9news.com. Perhaps the most obvious feedback tonight, is that a safe thing to do with your child? I'll have a pediatrician's view and your feedback next. We see the news stories about how Colorado's animal shelters are overflowing, and it can feel kind of powerless sometimes, especially if your family's not in a position to adopt an animal right now. But there is something that we all hopefully can do. Animal Rescue of the Rockies is a nonprofit that gets the list of animals facing euthanasia in the next couple of days, and they swoop in to rescue as many as possible and get them quickly into foster families. If you scan the QR code on your screen or text the word thanks to 303-871-1491, I'll send you the link to join me in supporting their work. Their largest single expense is vet care, and with our help, they're going to be able to rescue more animals that have treatable conditions that could have long, happy lives as long as somebody's able to pay for that care that they need up front. You ask me why this show's audience is like none other anywhere in America, and I'll tell you this. You all have raised more than $30,000 to support their work in the last 10 minutes. Schmidt Pediatric Guidelines says about babies on mountains, avoid mountain travel above 8,000 feet for the first month. Fine after that. Again, if you don't want your baby on a mountain, don't take your baby on a mountain. See you next time.